Hello, everybody. My name is Kevin Kawchak. I'm the founder CEO of ChemicalQDevice, here to talk about this FDA approvals for AI ML and kind of forecasting as where that's going to line up with the quantumapp specifically for QML. So as you can see, I'm going to go over 10 different approvals. So the 10 most recent have all been 510K classifications, meaning that there was an existing device that was similar, and that term is called Predicate. I also took a look at one of the de novos. I had to go back last year to go find one, and I summarized a lot of this in charts, and so it's easier to digest. Now, as far as the forecast with this, there are certain agencies, so say for instance, FDA is like the end result of all of your, if you get approvals with ISO and IEC, NEMA, the ones that have specifically computing or electronic components will likely play a larger role in defining, standards for quantum. Now, it turns out that IEEE actually has 9 different quantum standards already, ranging from, software, hardware to cybersecurity. Now, this is important because it sets up a quantum strategy for the startup. I'll go over 3 different stages and basically the two big main areas and how they'll be combined. Now, as you can see, there's different classes. Now, this specific is for medical devices in general, not just for AI, but most of the AI ML approvals fall under class 2 medium risk for 510K. Now, this is kind of an interesting kind of chart that shows where these wind up as far as submissions. And then you can see class 1 are just very basic, very low chance of causing harm, not much to them. Class 2 is where AI ML is, and then it'll split off between this 510K and de novo. And then class 3 is PMA, which is I haven't seen yet for AI and ML. Now, this is another way of looking at it. So basically, can you classify what you've already done before? So if you can, that falls more under 510K. If you can't, that falls under de novo. Now, like I said, this is general for medical devices. So for AI ML, they're typically 510K class 2. And we may, especially as this gets more developed, start to see different varieties of these. And so this is basically, 521 total approvals. This is going back to 1995. And these are for AI ML enabled medical devices by year. So as you can see, between 95 and 2017, only 73 approvals total in that time. And there's been a recent trend to go from more of locked algorithms to more of these continuously learning, like deep learning and those types of things that are harder to get approved. But as I'll show you here, as far as deep learning, they're starting to show up with 510K approvals. Now, the last 10, so this is going onto their website, and they posted this in October, so last month of 2022. 90% of these, so 9 out of 10 were radiology, 1 was cardiovascular. And then 30% of these were from GE companies. Sometimes they have different countries that they file under. And then 2022 so far, no de novo or PMA. And then out of the entire span of AI ML, there's only been 18 de novo, 3 PMAs in AI ML out of 521. And again, that's going back to 1995. Now, please refer to the whole FDA summaries for the full approval. And then this is basically the first one here. So as you can see, these fall into, 6 of 10 of these fall under existing images are already present. And you're using AI ML, such as DL or deep learning, to, basically get better results off of, say, for instance, Alzheimer's disease neuroimage initiative databases. And there's many other brain image databases, and there's other medical imaging as well. Now, in this specific one, big case study 993, and specifically to get bone density. So this company is called Heart Lung. And when I put the 5, 6 down at the bottom here, it's basically the first one's, just a 1-pager. Number 6 is going to be everything where I find the information from, to summarize. So number two, image reconstruction. Now this specific one is image processing. So this falls under image formation, and this is a GE healthcare. So they have many other predicate devices, and their approvals tend to, not be as in detail. And I believe this because there was, pre-existing factors before that are helping get these in. So basically, this is for computed tomography or CT, like how you get a CT scan of cross-sectional images. And then, so this one in specific, cardiovascular, is post-processing. So, basically you have existing images and now, you can get 3D views of the heart, CT, MR images, of the cardiovascular system there using machine learning. Now, another thing is, not always is it just one predicate device, meaning one device that was pre-existing that's similar to it, substantially equivalent. So in this case, they're comparing it to 3 predicate devices, all of their own manufacturing. So they're all kind of different because some will have, reference like a reference and then a predicate device. And it just depends on, what's been done before, because the basis of all this FDA approval is that, there's a lot to be gained if something else worked before it. And say, for instance, if it's worked for 3 years, so these are the types of things that's the basis of getting your submission. So number 4, so this is a portable MRI. So this one's called a Swoop portable MR imaging system. So it's an MRI on wheels, basically, to take to the bedside, to help with patients that can't get up and move. So the big thing with this one is it's basically reconstruction algorithm. So this is image processing or image formation step, and then to get better image quality. Now, the one that was different with this, its predicate device is its own same manufacturer, is that it had different hardware and then improved the minimum weight that it's used for, that it can be used on. Now, in specific, number 5, so this is the only out of the last 10 AI/ML FDA approvals. This is the only one that's cardiovascular. All the other ones that I'm covering are based under radiology, and radiology is a large term that spans between processing and post-processing, and it's just, I think it's kind of like a historical thing. Now, in specific with 5, it's existing ECG, heart conditions. So in specific, it's cloud-based, 2-lead EEG. So it's intended to build on the web, and you'll see some of these being kind of web-based. Now, and I'm going to get to standards later, and I mentioned it a little bit before, but ANSI, AMI, IEC, and like I said, with the quantum approach with a lot of these, so going from ML to QML and FDA approved, I believe a lot of it may fall under other regulatory agencies before it gets to the FDA. The FDA is obviously for patient safety, and everything has to work together, but you'll more than likely, in my opinion, have to meet these other standards before submitting to FDA. So some of these it's not a standalone device, and then in this specific one, a predicate device and a reference device from different manufacturers were used to base its to get submission for it. Now, number 6, so this is parallel workflow tool. This is existing CT images for head. And then, so you have, use in similar indications technology characteristics. So in specific, so ML analyzes non-contrast CT images for, in this case, it's for hemorrhages. So it sends it to the doctors. And a lot of these things are like, mobile phones or cloud, those types of things. So in number 7, so image segmenter, this is the second of the kind of the pure image processing of the approvals. So this is for cardiac MRI, a company called AI for Med Imaging. And then in specific, you take the 1.5 Tesla or 3 Tesla MR scanners, and then you're changing, basically the first step is detection, the second step is reconstruction. So you're using this new, machine learning based algorithm. So it had a different manufacturer for Predicate device. Now, number 8 is another GE Medical Systems. Now, the one following is also GE. So 4D is basically 3D real-time imaging. So that's where this term is coming from. And this is an all-out thing. So I'll show you kind of like the number of basically standards you have to meet if this is a full-out medical device. It's a very serious thing. So diagnostic cardiac ultrasound. So in specific, so this is the algorithm that goes with number 8. So this is where you see processing annotation and even post-processing too with this plugin, and I think it's mostly for legal issues to have one separate, or say, not dominating a market. And then, say, for instance, this is available to, in a different regard than the full out medical device. Now, number 10, so post-processing existing cardiac ultrasound. So this is actually a competitor to number 9, it looks like. And because they listed the Predicate device as a GE. And the stats are quite high, 97% accuracy. And then this is for diagnostic review. So cardiac segments. And again, these are based on existing ultrasounds with an algorithm to do certain things. So this is the only de novo I'm going to cover. So the most recent one for AI and ML for FDA goes back to June of 2021. So this is cloud-based pediatric autism diagnosis. So it's basically you record a child to see if they have Alzheimer's. It sends it up. There's an algorithm. And their study's kind of big, 425 subjects. So this Cognoa Inc., basically using this, method to get diagnosis for Alzheimer's disease for children, pediatric, it reduced it from 4.3 years to diagnose to 2.8 years observed in the trial. So a year and a half years sooner. So this is important if you want to treat any type of disease. You also, you want better prediction or, better understanding of it earlier. So in summary, these post-processing existing, and when I say image modality, I basically mean that, if it's a CT scan image, MRI image, those types of things, they average 3.7 regulatory standards per article. So this covers 6 of them. So there's number 1, and then you could read the rest of those. Now, reconstruction or segmentation image processing average 2 regulatory standards. And again, these are listed in there. So there may be some cases where certain things have fallen under Predicate devices and it's not appropriate for, listing an IPO standard, those types of things. Now, the complex systems, the portable MRI by Swoop, or the Swoop portable MRI, and then the GE4D diagnostic ultrasound are complex. So on average, they had 11 regulatory standards listed in their approval. Now, what's interesting is, so number 1, so this is summarizing these, this is the FDA last 10 AI ML submissions. Number 1, approvals based on existing images primarily only were the most common, 6 out of 10. Approvals based on medical image processing steps, so this is reconstruction and then segmentation, had the least number of mentioned regulatory standards. And it's not a big bunch, but it's not going to be as complex as the most complex. And number 3 had the highest number of mentioned regulatory standards. Now, I put together this chart to understand. So the reason of all this is you have to understand the history of the FDA with machine learning, and especially going into the whole quantum era, this new quantum era in healthcare, is basically there's certain of these standards that will likely play a bigger role in companies meeting specifics. So, number of qubits or quantum bits, how much error it has, what's the coherence, these types of things. So I put all these together as far as, you have your FDA, CFR is a federal regulatory. Now, the ones that you'll probably see is more, especially IEC, more electronic, NEMA is electronic, and then, the rest of them, ISO, ASTM, ANSI. They put the standards there. So there's a lot to learn. And this is where I put this table together, and you see how many. So this number 4 with the complex portable MRI is you're seeing many standards listed, and then likewise in number 8 with the GE, you're also seeing a significant number of standards right there. Now, in FDA in specific, when they write these, it's like reading mail. So they write, it's a letter addressed to the winner for basically their approval, and then you also have to follow all these other ones. So the first 2 pages you could gloss over, but basically anywhere from registration listing number 2 to number 9, several more FDA guidelines. So there are specific jobs for this. People that you'll see in these approvals, the employees that are responsible basically for upkeeping these, and this is the full-time job really. So these are the potential agencies. I mentioned some of these before, but in specific, IEC, Electrical, Electronic, and Related Technologies, NEMA, Electrical Manufacturing. So just imagine, and I'm going to put together in a couple slides here, what are the most important factors for these regulatory agencies to look at. Now, on this slide, so these are some of the standards that kind of popped out because they either mentioned technology, electricity, software. So the third bullet there, IEC 62304, software life cycle. So you're talking about machine learning, likely in that case, and then another IEC, usability engineering. You're going to hear DICOM, the standard is quite popular, in NEMA as well. Now, these are the factors, for any regulatory body that they're going to want to address. Is number 1, you're going to need to explain the need for superpositioning and entanglement with quantum bits or qubits over conventional classics, i.e., this is the area, for quantum advantage. This is why quantum is needed in medical. And then number 2, address the probabilistic nature of quantum computing versus deterministic nature of classical computing and medical devices. Number 3, specify areas quantum mechanics excels in to run quantum algorithms on quantum computers more optimally for healthcare. Number 4, these hybrid applications, CPU, GPU, QPU. In specific, the new one to the block will be the QPU. And again, as I mentioned before, setting basically standards for the qubit quality, number of qubits, error coherence, and then metrics for other quantum technologies. Now, in specific, as you can see at the bottom here, IEEE Quantum already has 9 active quantum standards. They range from software, algorithm, computing, simulation, and so forth, and especially security. So it's important because, it kind of sets the bar. And I'm not quite sure as far as the direct dealings between all of the agencies, but basically this is kind of like a head start, by IEEE Quantum. Now, in literature, you have the big thing with this is big companies have published in quantum machine learning for healthcare. We're talking Amgen, IBM, IEEE, Roche, winding up in this NIH article, and also BMC, which is a Springer Nature paper as well. Now, in specific, you can see this is not a new thing. So the big table of quantum artificial intelligence was in April 2017. So it actually goes back to, I think, about 1994. And then it goes, say to 2017. So this is just one of the pages here. And here is, so these are more articles for hybrid QML. So some of them are included, such as the IBM Amgen. And the takeaway with this next couple slides is basically, if you don't have awesome hardware, you're not going to get awesome results. So a lot of these are basically laying the framework for, Alzheimer's research, very, familiar areas. And the methods and analyses as well as the computer gets better. So in specific, you have more of these as well for COVID-19. It hasn't reached clinical use yet, so it will require additional research to figure out, pinpoint when will this kind of be generally accepted. And then this last one are kind of like the surrounding technologies, quantum algorithm zoo for algorithms, and then NVIDIA. Now, a big one is this NYU Langone and Fermilab are building a brand new quantum computer and quantum sensors as well, for MR images. So similar to the things that I've been talking about, Fermilab is a national laboratory in the US. Now, some more background. So this Los Alamos National Laboratory paper is a big paper, and I would suggest it to anybody, but it basically says, these are the reasons why you'd want to use quantum machine learning for sample complexity, and especially as quantum sensing and quantum memory improves as well, that will also play a big role too. Now, these are a bunch of the applications associated with that. They're basically, quantum machine learning is basically the #1 application for quantum computing. So anytime you have the opportunity to continuously learn with a new technology. Now, big data won't go through quantum computer. Big data will go through quantum machine learning. And what that means is that the quantum machine learning will offload small parts of data to the quantum computer as we see them today, and especially before all this, quantum memory and quantum sensing gets better. And then the quantum machine learning hybrid, with classical, will be dealing with the big data. And like I said, it's going to be partitioned off to the part in computing, the things that make sense. So this Caltech Google Harvard paper, I'm going to cover this a little bit later too. But basically the finding is that if you don't measure something away like classically, and you incorporate quantum sensing and quantum memory to the quantum computer that previously is noisy or was noisy, is that the big thing with that is, you get entanglement and you're storing this. And so you're getting, basically quantum advantage, adding quantum sensing, quantum memory. So here's some of the studies before. So basically quantum machine learning is better than the one before. And then, so basically this builds on the FDA regulatory agencies. I kind of touched on one, but look, #2 is there's local minimums and barren plateaus. So in barren plateaus, as you increase qubits, your beneficial valleys get narrower, which isn't as desired. Now, Forbes said that deep neural networks, deep learning, these kind of things that are more continuously learning, will likely be more difficult to evaluate versus classical. So these are things to take into account for not just the FDA, but the other governing bodies too. So then upcoming, we're looking for the NSF practical quantum computer. 76% of global HPC datasets are to use quantum, and there's been this big IBM news with potential for 16,000 plus qubits in a modular setup next year. Now, I covered a little bit of this last year, but the highlights that I haven't mentioned is IBM Cleveland Clinic, began their first quantum computer in healthcare installation of it last month. And then, President Biden, President Obama have been affiliated with quantum technologies. President Biden giving quotes on quantum computing and actually going to upstate New York, pictures with the IBM CEO by a quantum computer in front of an American flag. So there's other areas in internet and security and all these types of things will tie in with medical as well. Now, the strategy for ChemicalQDevice, the initial is basically to have collaborations. So these are experts in neuroradiology, quantum machine learning, and then also space as in a building. And then stage 1 here, Alzheimer's disease prediction, it's basically building off the study that I did with the AI ML on existing neuroimages and doing things with them. So it'd be using a database such as ADNI MRIs, and then getting better prediction just off of what already exists. So that seems like that might be the first stage there. Now, it's important for FDA, and when you're thinking about submissions, is to get organizational excellence, is they won't even look at your company unless you're likely big, because you have to be able to maintain, and especially going into quantum too, having good quantum understanding, these types of things. But can you maintain regulatory performance, as you prospectively would roll out a new submission and get approval. Now, stage 2 in specific, I've spent a lot of time on is basically creating better images. Now, this is somewhat more involved, and again, you're not going to get prediction right away. It's just taking a look at, and I'll show you in a subsequent slide, image formation, image computing steps, anywhere from detection, reconstruction, segmentation, visualization, those types of things. And enhancing images, as opposed to just getting your bulk images and doing things with it. So stage 3 is basically a combination of 1 and 2. So better images, better prediction for better results. It will offer the opportunity for standards and protocols, especially in this new quantum world, as all this rolls out in medical, as it's necessary. And in stage 4, FDA submissions, so you would see, likely a stage 1 for the startup with better prediction, and then going to better images, and then see kind of that hybrid approach. So this is a bunch of the, stage 2 better neuroimages, just a bunch of different references as far as what could be used for quantum machine learning to go into neuroimaging to get better images. And the right-hand column with current neuroimaging is it's full of machine learning. So today's approach, say for instance, you're not going to see full out quantum machine learning with quantum data, quantum memory, quantum sensing, quantum computing. Is likely you'll have something that's called like transfer learning. There was also an Alzheimer's study, I believe I listed earlier, that you're just doing fine tuning at this point with quantum technologies. And again, the kind of limiting factor in all of this is the quantum computer. But there are little things that we could do with quantum sensors and quantum memory to make, for error mitigation. So this is the specific slide I've been referencing. So there's growth potential in detection. You have reconstruction algorithms, you have enhancement analysis, visualization. So a lot of these surrounding slides are based on this analog devices, it's just medical image processing. So quantum federated learning will likely come a lot later due to, the standards have to be in place. So then you're training at these specific hospital sites or companies, and then building better models, sending them back down, and then doing it again, keeping the patient data secure. Now the quantum GANs or QGANs, GANs is a huge area for many people. And it's not quite fully accepted in the medical world, just because if you have 90% artificial data and 10% real data, is you're basically creating pseudo additional images to train with and other steps. And there's just, it hasn't been fully initiated yet. But basically, the quantum approach would be using staff notation and all these different qubits. Now, this is basically circuit optimization and iteration. So you have specific rules, and then using quantum computing. So this is somewhat of a more advanced approach to stage 2. And then this is the fundamental thing. So detection, so the hot area right now is diamond quantum sensors, and it's based on fluorescence. And an impure diamond that has nitrogen vacancies, and you're measuring this red light that comes off the sensor. So there's been big developments with that too. This is also, as far as neuroimages, to go sensor algorithm, quantum computing or quantum memory, quantum computing, a different approach to it, like a more advanced approach. Now, this may be technology readiness level cards have been around for a while. This is based on a NASA paper. So I'm forecasting basically to go into the quantum with this. This is the most, probably, if you want to really impress the FDA that you're using this type of approach with 10 different steps and all these different cards, this may be something that probably later on to take a look at. Now, the ChemicalQDevice mission statement is to improve neuroimaging techniques utilizing quantum technologies for better sensitivity, signal strength, and/or resolution, combined with advanced prediction in neuroradiology for Alzheimer's disease. So this includes quantum sensing, algorithms, and computing for MRI, PET, CT modalities. And then here's the summary. So letter A. So developments with existing image databases and quantum machine learning will present opportunities for Alzheimer's disease prediction improvements near term, stage 1. Image processing steps with emerging quantum technologies can likely be utilized to create better brain images, stage 2. Letter C, future combinatory work, so stage 1 plus stage 2, will likely yield synergy between stages and growth potential. Letter D is potential FDA submission stage 4 for stage 1, 2, and or 3. So the market opportunity for a lot of this is large. Global AI and medical imaging is about 45%. Neurology is the principal component. Quantum computing is anticipated to surge at 33%. And then next year, we're looking for the practical quantum computer by NSF-funded companies. So here's recent decks to look at. So there'll be 10. So these are just based on, say, for instance, quantum technologies, neuroimaging. And then, of course, the reason why all this is being done is because there's certain things going on in the human brain, and having better images and then better prediction later will likely help to improve the understanding of this and improve, basically get a better time point of where patients are in the future. So there's this neuroscience news kind of sticks out. It's constant articles all the time. I tend to go I'll find the link for the primary literature and read that because I need to know the specific. Now, there's a number of Alzheimer's disease organizations, and then I've done, say, for instance, volunteering at San Diego, Alzheimer's San Diego, and then I've done volunteering at Alzheimer's Association. And it's a very important thing because you have, caretakers that have, gone through, lost ones that have had Alzheimer's. And it affects many people. So we're talking, 1 in 3 seniors die with Alzheimer's or some form of dementia. Alzheimer's accounts for about 60% of dementia. And then even the financial impact is, I think about $325 billion annually spent, for Alzheimer's at different parts. Now, I created this because, as I said before, the hardware is the limiting factor, and you really want to get a good understanding of what's going on. So this is like a holiday present to all, and so in specific, the ones that tend to catch the most news or be in the most scientific articles is ion trap technology and superconducting qubit. Now, both of these are gate-based. Now, in specific, I'll just go. So I'm at the third white row. So the ion trap has advantage with connectivity. So IonQ says all to all. So this quantum bit can access this quantum bit. And then whereas the gate-based supercomputing, I believe it's still nearest neighbor. Now, as far as theoretical performance and those types of things, you have superconducting qubit is typically known as the most powerful, the most versatile, but it also suffers from the most error. and I'll show you why. So basically, even though the qubits, for this IBM, it's 433 qubits, is something to look at, and they say, potentially modular to 16,000 plus by the end of next year, they'll have it rolled out. The ion trap is typically keeping the qubits lower to get other kind of good stats. So this distinguishing features of IonQ, and they're partnering with Dell. And I took a look at the write-up for it. So I know they're using simulators with IonQ technology. So I wasn't quite sure is these 25 algorithmic qubits in specifically how much of the just quantum hardware. So a simulator is basically quantum mechanics on a classical computer, which is not as powerful, but it's getting better. And so quantinuum with this 8192 quantum volume under this distinguishing features row is basically you have these 13 qubits divided by error, and then they're the ones that get the highest quantum volume. Now, I think IBM came out with a stat, and then I don't think IBM has been able to reach it. But Quantinuum does very interesting things. I think more than half of their employees are PhDs. I'll show you a little bit in other rows. So distinguishing features, IBM, dynamic circuits. So this is last week's announcement to shorten timescales. And then the one I haven't quite talked about yet is Google. So Google came out with the original Quantum Advantage computer back in 2019. So for distinguishing features for Google is they took this old computer and they're incorporating quantum sensing, quantum memory with Caltech and Harvard. And I mentioned this paper to get storing and entangling for quantum machine learning advantage and noise mitigation. So if you look at all this, some have things that others can use. If it's gate-based, I'm not sure as far as ion trapped is gate-based superconducting qubit. So if you look at benefits, so IonQ is basically saying they're keeping the qubit count low, but 4 times performance over the previous generation. Now the ion trap technology also doesn't require, as excessive amount of say millikelvin cooling. And for benefits for Quantinuum is qubit recycling. So, taking an 80 qubit circuit on a 20 qubit processing was kind of interesting. And for IBM, it's their dynamic decoupler and mitigation algorithm. So this is for error mitigation. It's not error correction quite yet. And then for partners, the IonQ Dell announcement, as I said, is worth taking a second look at, just because it's definitely simulators with IonQ technology. And to be incorporated in a mainstream hardware technology is a big step. I'm not quite sure if that's considered practical quantum computing just yet. We'll have to see as far as the results. Now, Quantinuum, JP Morgan, BMW, IBM has many different partners, and especially, there's one going into Cleveland Clinic. And then in specific, single qubit gates tend to favor ion trap. And then coherence times, IonQ says they have the longest. I also heard, some of the neutral atom, which is down below, they list that, they have very good, if not excellent, as today's standards and coherence. And then, so basically IBM listed some of these things. So what's hinging a lot is there's a huge developer community, and they use Qiskit, Qiskit, about IBM. But the huge issue is basically these dynamic circuits, dynamic decoupler, their mitigation algorithms, is it significantly better? I heard 2 to 3x times better in coherence, but those types of things. So you have to look at all this. And actually, if you call one of these manufacturers, more than likely they'll use a combination of ion trap and gate-based superconducting qubit, because there's certain things that for some applications that one is better than the other. So for, there's references, 3 per column here. And then basically the ones, I've pretty much gone over this, but I think in the long term, maybe a lot of these technologies be incorporated one or the other. So I listed at the bottom some of the other ones. So spin qubits is basically on existing manufacturing for semiconductors. I think they're up to 6 qubits. And then photonics is very promising. Everybody wants it to work. I haven't seen too much, as far as like developing applications on it, but it's one of those kind of like keep an eye out for photonics. And actually the Nobel Prize winners were based on photonics and, quantum principles. And then I mentioned neutral atom too. So keep an eye on those other ones for 3. So with that, switch over here. So so we'll start off with the medical because I see some medical people here. And, basically I'd like to get your feedback as far as like the, regulatory, kind of like the history with AI ML, and then kind of your thoughts with QML, if you have anything. So feel free to unmute yourself. So I see Berend is on, and then Jock is on as well. And then if not, George, you're more than welcome to, come on with your video, unmute yourself. And then likewise for Sonu. A lot of these people come from LinkedIn. So this is definitely kind of that era where many people in 2021, October, we're excited about the IonQ IPO, first pure play quantum hardware. So it's just interesting, we see so much news and it's basically turning, and then go ahead, Bren. And let's see, chat. So yeah, go ahead, Jack or Bren. Oh, one sec. So chat. Okay, you should be able. Okay, go ahead, Jack.
Now we can't. That's what I was trying to tell you. We can't respond at all. That was the thing. Great presentation. Sorry, there's a little background noise where I'm working at. Great present. It was a lovely presentation. The question I just have is with when it comes to Alzheimer's and imaging and dementia, the hospital systems will love this technology, but the question I have is how will it get translated to a person who like most of these individuals who this will be designed for, they'll mostly be in nursing homes and assisted living facility places. So who will adopt this more, like hospitals or those organizations? Would they be more open to adopting something like this too? Because they will have a larger higher sum of people in this populations. There are big senior care facilities as well that attach themselves to a medical provider. So do you feel like this could be a separate test that they can do outside of a hospital, that an organization that they will try to work with? Or do you feel like hospitals are better equipped to be able to move this technology for, like, be able to find the business value of this for their hospital, as opposed to like maybe a senior care facility that attaches themselves to a specialty service like a cancer center or a diabetes center or kidney center, but they can be a separate Alzheimer's center to do this type of research? That was just my question.
Yeah, that's a good question. Now, so basically, it's a fundamental approach. So either making better images with image processing, and then especially starting off with existing images and getting better prediction based on quantum machine learning algorithms. So I kind of see it like a spider web, like that's in the middle, and then you would have hospitals, nursing homes, these surrounding organizations around. So as far as like the business rollout, I haven't quite gotten there as far as to say like, okay, this makes sense to work with this specific organization. But a lot of times it is that, like the those types of factors to collaborate with people. But yeah, I would definitely say it's more of kind of get the, this better brain images, anywhere from, detection, reconstruction algorithms to, image computing, all these steps. And, eventually use that with the knowledge that's gained using quantum machine learning with existing images, and then have this kind of commensurate effect where you're getting better images, you're getting better prediction, and then getting these better images and then using them to get better prediction. So that's the thing with pinpointing and the stages is basically the first stage would be to use these existing images, get a better understanding of it with quantum technologies and especially quantum machine learning, and then start there and kind of continue with better images.
So would this be better for maybe like a radiology group then to just take the software? So if there's a like MRI and CAT scan, there's a group already that's doing imaging and they have a separate facility, they would just adopt this technology in their system, and then that's because it's already in place infrastructure, they could just take the software and apply it in their own facility as opposed to trying to start something new.
Yeah, and essentially, I mean, there's R&D, there's preclinical trials, there's clinical trials, and yeah, that's where basically both of these approaches of either making better images or continuing with better prediction on existing images can feed off of each other. But yeah, the neuroradiology is more medical based. The imaging is more like fundamentals of processing with medical imaging. So we're going to move on. These are really good questions, by the way, Jacques. And then Bren, go ahead.
Yeah, Kevin, first of all, an excellent presentation. I've not seen someone being so capable of presenting so much data in such a short space of time. That was really fascinating. I would like to sort of follow into the same vein as the person asked before. I mean, the goal in Alzheimer's is obviously early prediction. Basically, so the earlier you can predict it, because there are things you can do. I mean, obviously there's certain genetic factors, but lifestyle, as we all know, also plays an important role. So if you earlier you can predict it, and currently the tests we're having are more sort of cognitive tests, and there's some biochemical tests as well. That's helpful. I think from a radio neurological perspective, i.e. imaging, you have to have a reference library, obviously, and you probably would first start with images where you have a good diagnosis, and that's probably at a stage where the Alzheimer's disease is a little bit more progressed, so it wouldn't be the earliest stage, I guess, unless you have access to a study where they would have done random images on people in the past, and then 10 years down the line, they make the proper diagnosis, because you need the diagnosis as a label. The whole idea of machine learning is you have your data, and then you do your prediction, and therefore you need a label, and the label would have to be Alzheimer's disease, and you have to be pretty sure of the diagnosis. So clearly you will have to work with a reference library, and chances are there could be a mixture potentially of different stages. So again, you have to think about it at a later stage, whether you want to actually look at early sort of different stages in the progression of the condition, and how capable the system is of learning. One thing I wanted to ask Kevin is, obviously you made the very good point how important it is to clean up your data, and I think that applies to any form of machine learning. If you just feed raw data into a system, you might end up with terrible problems or overload the system and don't get the predictions you want. You always try to clean up data, kind of pre-processed data. But each time you do this, you need a comparator. So I think the other challenge is obviously to compare quantum machine learning to traditional machine learning. So do you plan to have a sort of dual pipeline where you have your QML on one side and the traditional machine learning, and then each time you are refining your pre-data processing, you send it through both pipelines to compare, where you get better predictions? Because in a way you want to show that QML provides an advantage, because everyone has access to sort of normal machine learning with existing computers. You want to show that it's worthwhile investing into a cloud-based approach. What are your thoughts on this, Kevin?
Yeah, I'm going with the papers is basically, there's been, I think, at least 4 pretty big COVID-19 papers. Now, they haven't turned clinical, and that what I was trying to say is basically the limiting factor is still probably the hardware. So the quantum computer itself, because a lot of these, and there's an Alzheimer's disease QML paper using transfer learning. So it's basically at the end of the the stack, you're using a little bit of fine tuning with quantum. And then they said they had a couple percent increase in results. That wasn't a huge paper, but that was very specific to kind of like, the area that I'm in. But yeah, a lot of these, as far as there's been, and even some of the charts I showed before with other QML papers, is the IBM Amgen IEEE paper for rheumatoid arthritis is the largest quantum machine learning study to date. And they use a thing called empirical quantum advantage. So likely, and this is not just them, because Roche has had a paper too, is likely the methods and analyses are in place for a framework. It's just they all say the same thing over and over again: too low of qubits, too high of error, right? And then that's why you're not hearing about medical, say in the last year and a half in the news, is basically it's incremental results with quantum, and this is before quantum passing all the regulations. So Yeah, I'll start off with that. So the other thing is so the database, the Alzheimer's Disease Neuroimaging Initiative, it seems like it's the go-to. It's MRIs only, head, human head, and then I think it's just yes nos. So based on it's randomized or whatever, but based on your results of prediction, you compare. And I've seen other studies, kind of do that. And then, you had mentioned, so there is a mixture of biology and, say, lifestyle, and both are important too. And then I'll mostly be focusing on kind of like that, the science approach to getting better medical images, and then having better prediction with synergy.
Yeah, I think as you're saying, it's an incremental process, because I think the trick is to be ahead of the curve, because logical qubits, the number will increase year over year. So now we're at a stage where we're still experimenting with it and trying to get our algorithms right. But I think in a few years' time, we will probably have far more powerful machines. So I think we already have to think about how we're approaching the problem, how we are getting there. So the strategy has to be in place even before we have the perfect hardware. Plus, some of it can be simulated, or we might be able to take some shortcuts where, for example, we could drastically reduce the resolution of the images to see if that's still workable, basically, and if there's a quantum advantage. Because it may well be that if you have sort of almost minimalistic images, that the QML could have an advantage. You don't know this until you have tried and do the comparison. So I think there are quite a few approaches, as well as gradually to increase the complexity of your model as more and more qubits, hopefully logical qubits, become available. Can I just say a few things about, you were showing the different quantum computing companies, and you mentioned Quantinuum. They're actually using the Honeywell computer as their backend. And regarding photonic computing, that's Xanadu, which is a Canadian company, and you might have heard about PennyLane, which is basically their Python version of coding, which is actually not that different, slightly different from Qiskit. But so there is a company, and I think they're also at this stage where they're going public anytime soon, as far, because that's a really interesting area of photonic computing, not least because, as I probably said previously, lots of sensors work obviously in a photonic range. So if you could couple them much, or basically feed them much easier into a quantum computer if everything is optically based. It's just my opinion, but I think that's the way to go. Plus, it's room temperature. You don't have to cool anything to sort of 0 Kelvin or near 0 Kelvin.
I guess, this is not like a full study, but I keep hearing about gate-based, quantum computing, and especially ion trap and gate-based superconducting. Now, the other ones, there's recent articles out there, but I wasn't quite sure, because they mentioned gate-based photonics. They mentioned.
Yeah, I don't think you have to worry about it, because I think you can be agnostic. You can take an agnostic approach, because effectively, if you have your algorithm, you can run it on different systems, and you should compare. You should then compare which hardware backend gives you an advantage, because you can adapt your algorithm. That's the way I see it. I think you shouldn't worry about it. You just have to compare and see where the technology goes.
Well, yeah, I think there's some limitations as far as the two, ion trap and basically gate-based superconducting qubit. And I don't know. I just never seen staff notation with all the the gates and swaps and all that kind of stuff being used for photonics. That's something I'll take a further look into. As far
look at Penny. Look at Xanadu. When you Google them, it's like Xanadu, like the film. It's a big X. It's just the same. It's all gate based, basically. So if you have done a bit of Qiskit, you will be find it quite easy to learn PennyLane. It's slightly different the way they use the coding, but otherwise it's very similar. So I don't think that should be an issue. The problem is you're comparing apples and pears, and I think that's to some extent deliberate, because that makes it very hard to know who is the better one, because ultimately I think we're interested in logical qubits, because they're all using different metrics. It's very hard to know which system is actually more powerful. I think ultimately you might want to have to test it yourself. Basically just use a similar algorithm. Obviously you have to slightly adjust it maybe to each hardware, platform and then see where you get the better results, basically. And I think it might even depend on what deal they're giving you, because obviously access to sort of the actual quantum computer is rather limited if you look. And again, so there could be even commercial aspects looking at it.
Yeah, I appreciate all that. Anand, did you have something? We got your video, and then if not, you can go ahead, Anand. Looks like he's coming on.
No, just want to say thanks, Kevin. Am I audible to you?
Did you have something?
No. I just want to say thanks. I mean, it's a very informative and wonderful session. I'm just trying to. Actually, I'm just in the middle of learning machine learning and quantum computing. So I thought it's a very good application. So I have been following you for the past 2 weeks now. It's really wonderful. Your sessions are really wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, and I guess one thing that hasn't been brought up is basic in all these things. The quantum part of quantum machine learning is that at some step that it's using a quantum computer or a quantum simulator. So that's a key definition between just regular machine learning and quantum. Now, there's a whole spectrum of quantumness as far as, how much quantum is using, even starting with quantum data and going, through sensing and out and memory. And those technologies getting better too, but that's what makes it kind of the unique new thing is superpositioning, which is for parallel processing, and then entanglement, which is for exponential speedups. That's the whole key is, using quantum technologies at the right time for machine learning in order for it to make sense. So obviously the big thing is how good is the qubit, how good is the entanglement, and then that'll kind of forecast a lot of the results, especially in healthcare, neuroimaging, neuroradiology. So any other comments? So Sonu, I see you on LinkedIn, and then we've heard from, I think, everybody else, and then just have the holidays coming up. And so yeah, any other kind of last questions or comments? You can go ahead, Brent.
Yeah, just a comment. I mean, I was really impressed, particularly the regulatory sort of landscape, because really it's like drug development, what we're looking at here, and the enormous regulatory hurdles. So I think that was really fascinating how you've been able sort of to go through your research, quite impressive on how the FDA is handling this. And this is really interesting and I think very important, because at the end of the day, you want a product that is commercially viable and that's approved by the FDA. And I think that's also a proof, kind of a seal of approval, isn't it? It's good if you can get through that process. I think anywhere in the world, you will be able to get your device approved as well.
Yeah, and I will say this is the push is to try to get everything 510K. So 510K is based on predicate devices. There's no de novos in AI ML, and there's especially no PMAs in AI ML for 2022. Now, keep in mind, so a lot of the things, the more I think about it with the FDA approvals, is that it may just fall under categories like an IEC, a NEMA, a standard that more addresses the computer aspect to it, and then maybe just a change in the FDA books as far as saying, okay, these are new standards with quantum technologies. But I don't think, and a lot of the FDA is for basically ongoing, these ongoing things that you have to do to maintain. And I really think that a lot of it's going to rest more on these independent agencies as opposed to the FDA for approval. And then basically the FDA approving it. Now, the thing working in that direction is your IBM, your Amgen, your Roche, publishing these quantum machine learning healthcare papers that, ultimately many people want to go clinical, right? So yeah, that's there's things that it's just, that's how the landscape is in AI ML is having a predicate device that might, so say if you have a quantum machine learning algorithm for either neuroimaging or neuroradiology, and then it's essentially functioning the same way with improved results, and then what it looks like is maybe like these standards from the other bodies. I don't think they use IEEE, but IEEE has 9 quantum standards, but more for an FDA approval, your NEMA, these other ones that address electronics and computing a little bit more. But yeah, so any other last questions or comments? Definitely appreciate everybody coming on. So this is kind of like the big foray into understanding the landscape, and then understanding quantum, and then kind of tying all these things together to start off with the best project for the startup. So this has been episode 57. This is November 17th, 2022. Thanks again for everybody joining. Have a good rest of the week. And if I don't see you, have a good upcoming Thanksgiving holiday. Take care.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Best of luck with your project. Take